You visit, it's like 8 months, 9 months.
Oh, she didn't get it.
You have to visit like
MMA too.
8 or 9 school districts. It's a really fun program. But it's time consuming. So, but I loved it. You know, it was
That would
worth
be
it.
you next.
I know he was gonna say no.
No, like from it.
What about you, Caitlin?
We don't have decorum.
Chocolate.
We don't have a quorum?
You want to let them know. I can call Faith and we're gonna have quorum.
We need to have 4 people present to make.
Susie's on her way. but
Yeah,
she's not-
and Steph. Yeah, okay.
Perfect.
In compliance with the Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, I call this meeting to order on
March.
Sorry.
He was hearing.
Oh, March 2nd, okay. Let the record show that a quorum is present. This meeting has been duly called and notices of this meeting have been posted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. And now we will go into closed session at 5:05 PM. Yeah. The board will now adjourn to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act: 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.076, and 551.129. All righty.
comes to everything.
Two of
Yeah, I'm not like that. It sounds better when I say I do it all.
I'm just trying to hit your ride, but if not, I'll tell Harold to be dirty and you need a ride. Yes. We're ready? All right. Okay, the board will reconvene in open session at 6:04 PM. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it stands.
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For
Honor and defense the flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Oh, guys, I know we're working on our strategic planning and everything, but let me take volunteers for the mission and vision statement. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Christie.
Speak the life. Speak life into it.
Okay, collectively as a community, Manor ISD provides equitable resources, a safe learning environment, and high-quality educational services for all scholars to successfully achieve and reach their full potential.
Thank you. May I have a volunteer for the vision statement?
Manor ISD is the best district in Texas where we provide an equitable education for all students that graduate them ready to become leaders in our community.
Thank you very much. Trustee Patterson, we're gonna go to public forum and we don't have anybody signed up for public forum. Okay, action item 7.1, consideration of superintendent authority to resolve and settle special education disputes.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Trustees authorize the superintendent to negotiate and execute an agreement resolving a special education dispute consistent with the parameters discussed in closed session.
Thank you very much. I have a motion by trustee Dr. Lowry. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by trustee Patterson. All those in favor?
Aye.
There we go, 6-0. And now we're gonna go to information item 8.1, discussion of process to fill vacant trustee place as per policy BBC local. Dr. Robert Armani.
Now, this message is out there for the community. Our trustees will be soliciting potential persons who may be potential future trustees. We will be sending out a process to those persons that they would like to see. Email me their information. My job, I will compile that information and those names together for trustees to consider at a future board meeting, which is right now, March 30th. There won't be any action taken on March 30th, but we will be looking at the names of those persons that have solicited and have met the requirements to be a trustee. So more information to come from those trustees who are looking to potentially put a name forward. And trustees, I will get you some information coming up tomorrow. Right now, I am shooting for a March 25th date as a deadline for people to give me their names, assuming that you have solicited that person and you want the name to come forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharpie. All right, we'll move on. Okay, we'll move on to information item 8.2, budget workshop and initial estimates of revenues and expenditures. Moises?
Yes.
Oh, good afternoon, Mayor Board. So, want to go through this stuff first or the?
Sure. And some of these first few slides are repeats of what we showed you and now last meeting, which was supposed to have been the January meeting, but I just made them different because now they got these little pretty icons on there. But these are our 4 district budgetary goals. What we're trying to accomplish, obviously, we want to maintain safe schools. We want fiscal stability, ensure kids are reading on grade level, math and reading, 3rd, 5th, and 8th grades, and make sure our students are college, career, and military ready. Look forward, Mr. Santiago. Our guiding principles, as I mentioned before, as we begin to look at budget items, these are the 4 things that help guide us to decide whether it goes in the budget or not. And then we had some things that I've gathered that people want us to address in broad categories that are wanting to be addressed in this budget. And so you can see, I just took the same 5 and freed them up again. You'll notice that 2 of them have asterisks next to them. The funding for immediate maintenance and capital projects, we have an asterisk next to it because we have a plan to maintain that for next year. The asterisk next the surplus budget, as we presented you in the past, and we'll mention again tonight, we have a plan for building back that fund balance. So now we're working on the other 3 items that are up there and what that's going to look like in the future. Which leads us to Mr. Santiago, it's all you.
Okay, so the information I'll present tonight is based on the most recent data that we have. One of the main driving force behind the revenue that we anticipate or that we generate is driven by attendance, driven a lot by student enrollment. There are some terms that I'll explain later on. But right here, we have this constraint progress measure that's being set for us to measure our fiscal stability. When this was established back in 2023, the superintendent was given a goal of 92%, maintain above that. As you can see, back in 2023, we were in 90.5, and we have increased nearly 2% since then. We are currently as of 92.3, and that's based on the most recent data as of the last financial report that I gave you. So the end of January.
Okay, so I have a quick question. I love that we increased
Mhm.
2.3%. Do we know what we did right? Because that's gonna help us continue doing. That's what I'm saying, like, have we, identified how we increased it? And I just wanna make sure we continue in that path because it affects our 88.
Well, there's so many things you all did right. First of all, let me start by saying that you all took control. One of the main things that you had to do that was a little up. So you got the hang of the budget. You made the adjustments that were necessary to keep those operating expenses based on the limited revenue you all have. The other thing that we did right is improve attendance. At 90.5, almost a 2% increase, that generates quite a bit of revenue. Every percent that you add increases almost by 700,000-800,000 more in new revenue. But this case, where our goal is to try to keep it over the 92% CPM. And what is CPM is your fund balance as a percent of your expense budget.
To answer your question, Ms. Cortez, I'll have to ask the people who've been doing it. I've got ideas, but I'd rather ask them first. We can answer the question for the whole board. What do we think is working to increase the attendance rate over the last 2 years, 3 years?
Thank you.
This is the same. Right here, you see it as your attendance in the green line, and then you have your enrollment in blue, and then you have your refund ADA in orange. Your refund ADA is what we are funding. So it's your enrollment, not only times, but it's your attendance and other factors that point there. You have the participation in special programs, participation in CTE, participation in special ed, bilingual, everything is factored in to generate your refined ADA. And that's what we are funded on. So as you can see, the last year in 24-25, our final numbers were 91.3% attendance. And then you also had your enrollment at 99.5%. 9,961. Even though in the middle of the year, we exceeded the 10,000 enrollment, usually tends to decline as we get near the end of the year. And that's the same thing that we're anticipating from now until June. Your actually ADA is that number right there, the number that we were funded on last year. Currently, as of the first semester, we're at 92.3%. We know that that's gonna decline a little, maybe not as much. So I'm anticipating that by the May should be around that figure right there, 91.8. So that's what I'm anticipating based on the data that we have for the first, second, 6 weeks. We just finished the fourth 6 weeks, and that's still not upon here. The last day was February the 20th. We're still working on refining that attendance rate.
I have a question. Do you have any information as far as other Region 13 districts or other districts in the state about how soon after the pandemic they were able to reach their pre-pandemic attendance?
I'm pretty sure no one has. Like it's zero. We, on the table report, there is a Region 13 average that's never gotten back above. Now, I think if you go further out, there might be some smaller communities that may have done it. But I don't know if any medium-sized or larger district that has gotten back.
So that's
You know, I'm always looking for best practices and what did they do that we can replicate?
little by little, we're getting up there. This is where the pandemic rate hit the lowest, 90.5. We're getting up there.
And I should point out that as a good CFO, you'll notice in the future, he has the attendance rate low because he's being sufficiently pessimistic to make us conservative in our budget numbers. I am not anticipating our attendance rate to go lower. This is one of the things he does to make sure it goes down. We don't over budget things in the future.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because the reports that we had from the demographer last year were predicting that we were going to be for 26, 27, we were going to be already at 10,500 enrollments. Most recent numbers, the most recent report is showing that for next year, we anticipate a decline of 88 students. So we have to be very conservative in those numbers upfront. But if you just consider the 700 declining in the enrollment and assuming a 91% attendance, that's about a refined JDA, just a rough number of 649. Our basic allotment is 6,200, so that's about a little over 4 million in revenues. That's assuming that the demographer's report last year. So these are the new numbers for the 26, 27 right here, 98.15, and then his 27, 28, 9,928. So by 27, 28, the demographer estimates that we are going to exceed already the 10,000 enrollment number. It's still out. But these numbers are refined or repopulated every quarter, so you can update those. Okay, right here. Estimated revenues for next year. Our current budget is a balanced budget. It is based on the estimated revenues that we anticipate receiving for this year, which is 105 million. We are still balanced, and included within the 105 that we have in the budget is 4.9 million that we generated one time only from the state appeal revenues. We are not counting that again for next year. That was only a one time. So on the most conservative estimate assumptions, ADA, property values, even though we do not have the preliminary value, which will be released until April, That's what I'm looking at right now. A hundred million, and that's actually less than a 1% increase over the current year minus those one-time 4.9. So that's about a million decline in revenue that we're anticipating. Our current budget, it's 105. We are in February, so about 70% of the budget. Still have a couple more months to go. We're spending about between 6 and 7 million a month. So I anticipate that by the end of the year, we would have to spend about 101 in expenses. So a little savings in there, maybe 105 operating budget. The reason for that is because when we adopt a budget, we assume 100% full staff. So our salaries are about 80%, 77, 80% of the entire budget. We are gonna have some savings in there because we're not gonna fill prisons. There's gonna be some savings also in contracted services, general supplies, travel, stuff like that. All of that, the net of that accumulates to what I'm anticipating right here that we would be, unless something else comes up. And we do not have the bond funds to be, but this is close to an actual or estimated end of year figure.
Balance budget.
based on- We'll be able to put some funds back into the fund balance.
I have a quick question and it's maybe, I don't know if we answered it already, but I'm just curious of the big outstanding debt that we have. Do we know? Like, outstanding property tax collections from,
Oh,
Some of
the
the
people
major-
owe us.
yeah.
Yeah,
Do we,
we did get a hold of, you go ahead, you got a hold of the tax collecting people. We had about,
Yeah.
so just to remind you, all, we have some major tax, what's the word? People who owe property tax, not just us, to Travis County, who haven't paid up and they're now being litigated.
Traveling housing
There's-
corporates.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's
there's a few
two
of them.
different.
There's a few of those. Yeah, those are still in litigation. It's a couple million. We might, if they get approved, if these entities get their tax exemption, we might lose about 107 million in property value. But I'm already backing that out in my projection. If it does get approved, that's additional revenue. I don't know how long it's gonna take, probably take years. But also, we are not accounting for the revenue that we should be expecting to receive from the airport. So that's other revenue that should be coming in the near future.
We also have revenue one-time fund, well, not one-time, it's gonna be every year, starting February 1st, 2027. From, do you remember the Freeport exemptions? I'm not saying that, where the companies they're trying to exempt themselves from tariffs. But they have to pay us back, but they're gonna pay us more than we would have got property taxes. So again, we're gonna route all that straight into the fund balance. This is part of the plan, but we're not accounting for that in our plan because don't count your chickens before it's hatched.
Yeah.
And no one can tell us exactly how much money we're gonna get. I know the minimum amount, but it could be significantly higher depending on how much inventory they start moving through that tax exempt zone that they're creating. It's Samsung and United Clean, I can remember the other company's name. One thing I want to show, just to summarize this slide, and why I arranged it the way I did, so. Our estimated revenues are a little over 100 million. Our budgeted expenditures are 105 million. But our actual expenditures are 101 million. While the difference between what we budgeted at the beginning of this year, and next year is $5 million, my point to the staff and the community is we're living off 101 million, but we budgeted 105. So the gap is not as large as people think. So people see that 5 million, they're like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have to cut. It's like, no, we're living off 101 million already. Now we need to move some stuff within that 101 million. But we're already living within our means. we just over budgeted some. And part of that over budgeting in 25-26 was we actually still been cutting things all the way through. So it's just not reflected, but it is reflected in the actual expenditures. So while we do have some choices we're gonna have to make, it's not, I get this feeling sometimes that people feel like they see that red and like, oh no, here we go again. No, we already did the hard stuff. So that, it will never be like it was again last year. So if you want to know what the estimated expenditures are, $100,758,000. It's the same number as our estimated revenues.
Not that balanced budget. But also know that when you adopt a balanced budget, you don't put anything back into fund balance. So the hard part is to maintain balance. If it goes negative, then you take away from the fund balance.
But we have a plan to put back into the fund balance.
We do.
That's our goal.
Click on the next slide.
Okay, so we're finally here. That first figure is assuming that we budget, those are the estimated savings from field vacancies. Now that number could change. Everything at this point is gonna change from going to the next question.
Everything, all the numbers are gonna change if you're watching out there.
Yeah.
We will refine the numbers more and more.
Yeah.
But just so people understand, I was explaining this to someone in cabinet. So if Chief Yarborough has a police officer that resigns and we hire another one 2 weeks later, that's 2 weeks gap pay that is going into that first row up there. That's where you get that. We're not planning to have
Yeah.
vacancies, but when you have 1,300 employees, you always have vacancies here, there, and everywhere. And they amount to a dollar amount around like $1.5 million. That's the money that we need to put back in the fund balance for you. So when you adopt a budget, a balanced budget like we are, where we account for every single dollar we could possibly spend, anytime we save it, it goes into fund balance. And so that's what that first line is. You'll see that second line about reducing the teacher workload. I've heard that a lot. We are still refining the class size numbers and what we think that $100 million will sustain. The first or initial round, there was something wrong with it. We've been talking about this, that it's just it's an issue on our end as far as some positions seem to be doubling up, and it's not, the numbers aren't coming out. So I'm gonna keep updating you once I've got those numbers firmed up as what we think they are. And then we'll decide if we want to shift more money into that direction. Even if we do it in a workshop. That next thing, Mr. Santiago and I believe that we can cover the individual cost of medical insurance for our staff. It will go up. The hard part is you never know how much it's gonna go up because they don't tell you until the summer, so you have to adopt the budget ahead of time. So Mr. Santiago gave us his best estimate of $697,000. Because we put back a significant amount of money in fund balance this year that we expect to be going back, we won't have to borrow as much money like we did last year, which means we don't have to put as much in for interest payments in the budget. We just freed up a bunch of money, which to everyone's point, why it's so important for us to continue to put fund balance back, we are freeing up money to spend on our staff. That's gonna allow us to do that. And then I put that last line down there. There are positions I know that are being paid below market. TASB does a study for us. We are going to need to set aside some funds to targeted compensation for those various positions. At this time, I don't see us having enough funds to do something large across the board. We'll see as the numbers get refined if that changes. But I think what I'm hearing, most people would like us to take care of the health insurance for sure. So we can maintain that individual health insurance is paid for by the district. And then targeting those persons that we know are below our margin as they come forward. Or not they, but as we get those things from TASB, we identify those positions. So I don't know how much that's going to be. But that's going to have to be at this point a reallocation of funds from one place to another to make that happen. When I say reallocation of funds, I'm going to give you one example we're working on. We are currently doing the process for an insurance consultant to help us with property insurance. We believe we can get significant savings from our property. You heard me say it again, significant savings from our property insurance. Once we have locked that in, and we know And we can reallocate those funds currently budgeted for that to something else. But we'll wait until we have locked in and saved.
Self-insurance.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Reducing the amount of insurance on some things. It's the same thing we all do with our cars.
Exactly.
If your cars get really old, you don't want to spend as much on collision. You start changing out what you want to spend money, how much you want to, maybe deductibles higher. There's a whole lot of things you can do. And we're gonna do the same thing with different buildings. So we use move on a trail. We all know that building is getting really old. Well, why are we spending a ton of money on property insurance on building, you know, half of it's gonna go anyways? You
And
shouldn't
you're
be.
not even gonna meet the deductible for any type of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which all that can be used to reduce our insurance cost, and then we put that money someplace else. But that won't show up here until we've locked that in. That's kind of the conservative approach we take, is to keep ourselves from spending money we don't really have.
Any more questions on the previous slide? Okay, so the last slide, what you have here is the cash flow update. Every quarterly, I try to update this and keep it as most as current as possible. The green arrow, that's where we are right now. And by the end of June, we should anticipate to put money back into fund balance, but I'm also gonna come back and request for another. So I'm gonna have to, but this time it's not gonna be as big as this one right here. Cutting this about right now, that's based on the actual activity and the average activity that we see on a month-to-month basis until the end of June. So right now I'm looking at about 15 million. It could be a little bit higher, maybe just to add some of the admin fees for the financial advisor and other costs that go along with that. We also gave ourselves some cushion when we borrowed this 30 million right there. Just last week, we paid 10 million. That was our second payment. So far, we still have a balance about 50 that. And I'm anticipating that we should be able to pay it off early. My anticipated time to pay it off early was by the end of this, by the end of March. So those figures are still looking at promising. So we should anticipate a little bit of savings in there. So this is what we are borrowing for right here. This is our lowest point that we could possibly hit by the end of fall. That's the reason why we're having to borrow this to make up some of those that lost revenue right here in this part. For next year, we anticipate that our fund balance will be increasing. So by the end of the 2027 fiscal year, should anticipate about almost 3 months in reserves, 98 days. So our CPF would increase up to 26.8%, where we would have to borrow only at least less than 10 right here. It would be lower than that, but that's kind of a high end number. Beyond that, that year, I don't see us needing to borrow again. We would have to rebuild our fund balance. Of course, one of the main things and very critical for us to achieve this goal right here is the sale of assets. We are anticipating for this, between this period, between now and 2028, some sale plan that we're anticipating in here to be able to help us achieve this goal right here of not having to go back and borrow.
I have a question, and probably you answered it, but I don't, we were not sure. The ratings, I know we have an A rating and everything, and I
Right.
know borrowing this money, I don't know where we're at with new parameters, new laws, or whatever with rating the school districts now that it's like, it'll be the fourth time we'll take, third or fourth time that we take out a loan. How will that impact us, if any? And what that, I don't know, do you understand the question?
Yeah.
First rating.
Yeah. Okay. So you're talking about first rating or bond rating?
The first rate, the one that impacts
Okay,
our loans.
so yes,
Oh, wait.
the first rating is
That's
gonna
right,
be,
you said the impacts our loans.
I mean, what the loan that we're gonna take.
Okay, what impacts our loans is our loan
Bonds.
rating, bond rating.
Yes.
Okay,
And
Yes.
S&P.
yes.
Is that what you're asking?
yeah, I guess because if we're still paying off our bond debt and
Right.
if we're going to,
Right.
What we done?
So we could be,
we still pay.
Well, yeah, it's any, when he says bond rating, it's like any loan. rating.
Yeah.
It's basically our credit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's.
so if you recall, S&P gave us a period of 2 years
Right.
to rebuild the fund balance. If we don't do that, then they will downgrade us. Then that's where it's gonna hit us
Okay,
in
so
the bond.
that's what I
Yes.
wanted to,
Now-
yeah.
On the side of the first financial rating, that's gonna hit us and it's gonna hit us in 24 to last year, 24, 25. And the reason for that is because we went into the fund balance. So every year that you adopt a deficit budget, go into fund balance, you automatically are not, you're reduced to the second level. At the, what's it called? The superior level, then right below 89 points. I don't remember that, but yes, we're gonna fall within the 89, right below, because of our decline in the fund balance, which basically tells this TA we were not solvent for this year. So, kind of but as far as the loan does not, this loan, short-term borrowing is not affected by the first rating, it is not affected by the bond rating. Okay, it is affected by the way we manage our cash flow. If we do a very poor job in managing our cash flows, those banks are gonna, they're gonna lend us at higher interest rates. But we have to show them that we have in control of the budget, we are gonna be solvent. By the end of the year, we're gonna be able to operate or pay our short-term debt. And that's how we're gonna be able to convince them to give us a loan.
You convince them.
Madam President,
Good job.
Madam President,
Yes, Miss, trustee Martinez.
I have a question for him when we get a chance.
Go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so as far as dipping into the fund balance, what's causing us to do that?
So, since last year, the reason why we had to dip into fund balance is because you adopted a budget of 25 million, but the revenues were only 114 million. So that's the difference. It's the amount that you went into fund balance.
Gotcha. So like, were we able to pinpoint what part of our budget was the one that we over budgeted for? So in other words, is it operations?
Yes,
Is
sir.
it, okay. So are we
Yes, sir.
are we having any success looking at ways that we could tighten that up and find some inefficiencies that we can work on so that we reduce that as much as possible?
Yes, sir. That was a situation for last year. We did all the necessary cuts, the adjustments into the budget. The main part that affected our decline in fund balance was personnel costs. Back in 23-24, we rolled forward a lot of federal grant funded personnel into the general operating fund balance. We are no longer in that position. We adopted a balanced budget this year, and we do not anticipate going into fund balance in the 25-26 school year.
So there was 2 years in a row that we adopted a negative balance.
Correct.
And last year was the very first year that we did a balanced budget.
Yeah, the deficit budget.
Yeah, I think it was, one year it was like negative 20 and 21 minutes, like 3 years ago.
But I heard you earlier say we're gonna pay that loan off end of this month.
We have to. We have no other option. It's a short-term loan.
Yes.
Yeah, and we are gonna pay it off, so that's
Yes.
good.
We're gonna pay it off, and we're gonna come back and
Let's
borrow
go
more.
back.
But it's gonna be, okay, so we're gonna borrow less, therefore, we're gonna pay less interest, and we're gonna pay it off earlier.
Never again.
And then hopefully never again will we have to borrow money because we're gonna have enough cushion. Right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's-
That's what I'm saying.
That is.
Plan.
I just want to make sure, like,
Laws
say it
and rules
public.
change in
Yeah.
our state.
If we
Angel.
don't get- Yeah. Or not.
Angel, so then like, for instance, since we're borrowing less, are we able to take that and roll that into the fund balance?
Correct. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
We can spend that money and we'll be putting money back into fund balance this year, and we anticipate next year as well. We're gonna shoot for $1.5 million into the fund balance.
And that's just from not as big a loan needed, right?
That's just overall savings and efficiencies.
Yeah.
It's actually, that's actually even more than the interest we save on the loan.
Yeah, because it seems that, I mean, it's been stressed how important it is for us to grow this fund balance as quickly as possible. So I'd like us to continue to finding, a way that we could do that as quickly as possible. So it would be my opinion that if we can, and we do find savings like what you just mentioned, or ways that things that we didn't have to spend money on, that we can roll that back into the fund balance and get that up to where it needs to be sooner than later.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And
Okay,
thank you
more
for
questions?
doing that, though. Once again, thank you for helping us balance the budget. Like, thank you.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
That's what you got before.
And thank you for stressing that and taking charge and making sure we do that. Would have been.
Well, if y'all don't have any more questions.
No, thank you, Mr. Santos.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santiago.
Thank you.
Joe, thank you. That's her. Oh my gosh, we're doing good.
By all means, feel free.
Yes, yes. We're doing good, yes.
Discussion of possible new tech transportation zones for 26-27 and future attendance zones for 27-28. So just to start
I
off,
want to say one thing before we get started, just also this. One thing that I neglected to, and I realized in talking to some trustees, if we ever do put attendance zones in place for new tech, I want to make sure, the whole plan is always to grandfather kids that are already there.
Yes.
So I put that later on, but it was too late for the agenda to be posted. But I want to make sure from the get-go, anytime we talk about this, no one's going to suddenly move around. Everyone's going to be grandfathered in. And then, so trustees for tonight, what we're really looking for is feedback on the efficiencies we can find and savings we can get from changing transportation zones. And then the attendance zone discussion is something that will require board action in the future, not necessarily even in the short-term future, but it is something that requires a lot of long-term planning. And I have gotten feedback from some quarters about wanting to begin to explore this option. So that's all we're doing with attendance zones, is exploring that option. And it'll be much longer in the future before we took any action along this line. So two kind of separate discussions, but they're related to each other, so we put them together. So Brenda,
I apologize, I need to introduce myself. So again, Joe Mendez, for those who are out in the internet land, as well, Chief Operations Officer, and good evening, Board of Trustees and Dr. Shimon. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to take you through a couple of scenarios. One with proposal for, or looking forward to planning in transportation zones, what we call transportation zone, and nothing to do with attendance zones or anything else. And then the second part would be attendance zones after that. So this is the early stage focused on preparing proposals and forecasts rather than implementing immediate changes right now. So Dr. Shimani said, we're just looking into the future. Through a series of scenarios and other projects, we aim to better understand what potential shifts might happen. So I'll start you with the next slide here, which is really just the why, right? Why are we looking into this? A couple of reasons. It's going to increase some funds and instructional time more than anything else. What I mean by instructional funds, we're looking at about 152 dollars in savings, which could go back into the classroom. If, when we're looking at this, and at the same time, we're looking in increasing instructional time. So a lot of times our bus drivers, as you know, we have 3 tiers in transportation, elementary, middle school, and high school. As we get done with our elementaries, we start the middle schools, and sometimes we're late because of that. So we have 30 routes, and I'll go over those here in a minute, but that means that we could pick up through the whole district. That means from one corner of Manor all the way to the other corner of Manor, and so we have 30 buses going out there every day. That's it, but we're looking at reducing mileage from 227,000 miles a year to 121,000. Fewer bus routes from 30 to 16, fuel reduction from 45,000 gallons to about 21,000 gallons. And then we looked at overtime. It does add up. We're looking at for all the routes that we have, if you take half those routes and just add like 15 minutes to each of those routes, you're looking at about $40,000 as well with that. And of course, the instructional time, the only place that I can quantify that is that kids that are missing out on that, they're missing out on minutes, right, in classroom. So if we can get them there on time and quicker, without stressing our transportation bus drivers, then we have more time in the classroom. So these are this is just the current model that we have right now. As I mentioned, this is all our the district boundary that we have. And so that means every dot in here, by the way, represents a student, 6th through 12th grade in the district. And this is only for the new tech current who signed up right now this year. So there's about 1,400, 1,480, 1,500, somewhere around there, students that we have through both campuses. And so we picked both campuses up at the 2nd tier, which is the middle school tier, but we also pick them up for high school. And so we have 30 bus routes that go through the whole district and picked up the students from, which is again, the 30 routes, about 1,300 miles a day, which equates to about 227,000 miles a year. Okay, so possible transportation zones that we're looking at, here's the scenario. We're looking at, these are not boundaries again, these are just transportation zones. If we were to split those up and what we would call zone stops, the zone stops would be the campuses themselves, like elementary campuses or high schools or anything like that, like MRA and so forth. So what we're looking at is going from 30 routes or 30 buses out there to having about 16, which is almost about half. That would automatically decrease our mileage, and then of course to about 700 miles per day, and equates to about 120,000 miles per year in fuel savings and some overtime savings that we would have. We would split those out into 7 categories, and this might look a little bit different. This is just a scenario here, but what we were looking at is, like, I'm going to take over here number 6 out of Pioneer Crossings and Blue Bonnet Trails. So if we're looking at that, the average distance for that hub stops for anybody that lives there is about, and I wrote it down here because I don't want to tell you wrong, is about half a mile to about a mile from number 6. That's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go to number 4 now. The distance from there to the hub stops is going to be anywhere from 0.7 miles to about 2 miles from there, unless we go back in there and look at pivoting, because there's really nowhere to pick up in this area. Our closest campus is going to be Blake Manor Elementary from there. So that means that we would have to figure something else out. In other words, to get that transportation or that hub a little bit closer to their pickup zones there. Just pointing that out.
So is that why it's 6? Like, we see 6 numbers, but potentially 16 proposed stops, because there will be additional ones.
Yeah, well, right now we have it at 16 stops right now. So some of these areas here might have 2 or 3 stops in there. It might be the same bus, but at least it's going to be 2 or 3 hub stops
Yes.
in there.
That's exactly what.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it.
And you said from 0.7
Point
to
set-
2 miles.
Every zone is going to be a little bit different,
Okay.
but we can carve that out to make it a whole lot easier. Like, I'll take a 3, for example. There's nothing here on 3. So what I had to draw a line from this little pocket of students here all the way to like Manor Elementary over here, or I'm sorry, New Tech. And so from here to here, I think it was 0.8 miles.
Okay.
And so we'll have to, or 1.8, sorry.
Yeah, makes
So, but we would have to figure that
Yeah.
out along the way, but the concept is knowing that we would try to do those hub stops as close as possible to our cluster of students that we have.
So if I'm a parent, what, would this anger me and why would it anger?
That's a good
Yeah.
question.
Can I tell you, I mean, you've got parents in these schools, I've got parents in
I
both
know.
of these schools as well, and they ride Manor ISD lovely yellow limousines every day.
So what's the
Uh,
potential for,
So I, the conversation from sitting as a parent who is also a trustee, we've made some changes. And families have gone from being able to look down the street to now a half a mile or a mile. That's one of the changes that we've taken. Some of these, and we haven't talked in depth, or I personally haven't talked in depth to the two of you, but just in looking at some of these, and kind of where our stop is, I mean, the pin drop for me with our big change that was made recently this school year, it's literally 2 blocks. So for some people, it might be that little, some it might be a half mile, a mile or more, right? So, as far as the efficiency, the other thing is we can see very quickly. Parents have the ability to see where those buses are down to what, 5 minutes, I think is how fast y'all update them.
And
So
I love that.
it's amazing to be able to see that transportation dashboard. Kiddos can see it. Kiddos have it saved on their phone. They know how to get to it. I think the question that and you brought it up, like attendance zone or transportation zone 3, we now, that's across where the Longhorn's going, where the apartments, what is, I can't, something grass. What are those apartments?
This is really on the, like the Walmart area.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I can't remember the Grassdale Apartments, Grassdale Apartments. And where Travis County is. So that's kind of one. And then there's a couple of communities over there. I'm worried about that, just from a traffic and congestion perspective, right? Looking in the other areas, from me, again, parents' perspective, I think it's a continued conversation with transportation and the visibility, right? And you all communicating clearly, how can parents get that information? I think the district's done a great job with the changes that you've made over the past couple of years, because they've been significant, but kiddos are getting to class, they're getting to class on time. And I think that's it, getting them in class on time, getting them there safely. That's the communication to the community, is that this is to optimize the way that kiddos get to school and that they can get there on time and that they can get home on time too.
And then once we decide, so this is for the 26-27 calendar.
That's correct.
So
For the
then-
transportation.
Whatever that looks like, we need to make sure we have plenty of time to communicate everything.
As a parent who's experienced before, the campus, the school that my girls were going to at the time, parents were able to pick a hub. So sometimes it's beneficial if the parent lives in green, but they're going to work on the other side of 6, yellow, and they're like, oh, hey, I can be that much closer, my kids get on this bus. If that is going to be an option for them to sign up for a hub, it could benefit the parents getting them closer to work at that drop off.
That is very true. And just to, again, I drew a little line from this cluster here, just to see how far it was. And actually I drew another cluster from another line from this cluster to this campus here, which is PME, right? Residential Middle, and that was even closer. That was like half a mile away.
Yep.
So it just depends on where you want to go for that.
So have y'all explored that option as far as being able to sign up for a different like trustee?
We have not explored that. Like actually, we just done it on paper.
Cause some of those schools are pretty busy in the morning.
Yeah.
So
Now,
pretty easy to get
we
into.
have done something like that. If you remember when we had Milk open, we did hub stops the same way. what we did is
Yeah,
parents would
that's
go,
right.
if y'all remember that,
Yeah.
parents would go to their elementaries. We would then send a bus going around and picking up all the elementary students or pre-K students and then bringing them to the pre-K. So,
And that's
then taking
good
them
to discuss, because then I'm thinking about blended families, like, okay, certain time of the week, I know, cause my granddaughter too, and certain times of the week, it's, and they take turns and, one drops them off and one rides the bus on Wednesday, depending on the day. So that's.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is try to make it as flexible as possible,
To be able to meet the goal.
because it looks great when you say half the.
I know.
Jeez. So we have to make it work. Community.
Again, this is the early stages of it, just to say, and so this will probably look a little bit different, not too much difference. We can actually add a couple of more, like I said, we can carve it out just a little bit more to get it more efficient, but this is what we have right now.
So you said all of the dots are current students that are in these,
6th through 12th grade
correct? And so they're current students,
for new tech only.
right? And so I'm assuming most of your students are bus riders that are out on the outside.
Right now, we're
I'm
looking
looking
at,
at Bobby.
yes,
You have to recognize it before you speak.
Oh, Bobby, Principal Garcia. I was like, when you were looking at me, I know.
It's been a while since I've done this, but I believe it's Madam President, Dr. Sarmani, members of the board.
Yes.
Thank you for addressing me. Yes, so we do have just over half of our kids ride the bus, and it's obviously significantly larger with New Tech Middle students. And so, yes, the vast majority of the combined 6th through 12th grade scholars at the New Tech complex, I will call it now, do ride the bus.
Thank you.
and it varies, as like Bobby said, it varies from 60 to 80%, and I can tell you, some of the numbers fluctuate, especially since we have graduation at the middle of the semester. And not only that, we sometimes families that don't sign up at the beginning and then sign up later on. And so we have to keep up with all those numbers, and they fluctuate from 60 to 80%. It's a big gap, but that's about, it just depends on what season you're in. So Manor New Tech High School, so what are our next steps? What we're looking for. So we're looking at getting community feedback on transportation routes and stops. We're looking at recalculating savings as needed. Again, that's redrawing the boundaries if we have to, or the proposed transportation zones. And then making a final decision on routing, if this is something that we want to do, and if this is something that we, right, as a district, know that that's the right thing to do, so we can bring money back into the classroom.
So as far as the community feedback, I mean, are you looking to do a survey? Is it something going out in Skyward? How are you looking to get that feedback?
We're looking at doing survey, yes, and other forms that we would incorporate our communications department to help us with that process.
I would, as a suggestion or a recommendation, as far as that survey goes, I think it would be really beneficial to us to offer them a chance to be able to like select on a map where they would prefer to have a hub. Not because we know we're gonna be able to make every single person happy, but I think that might make things look a lot different than basing it on home address. So to Stacy's point, if there's a possibility that parents are going to want to choose a place that's closer to Austin because that's where they're headed to work, finding that out early on in the survey process can definitely help us develop a more sustainable plan.
And I'm just thinking about our teachers and staff in the district that work at different locations. Their child might not be picked up at their house or close to their house. It might be at their campus of employment. So that's.
And that might even help us up on timing, even for the employee to get that.
Yes,
and then-
exactly.
And they don't have to wait, because we currently have that issue right now with some CTC employees. We start so early.
Just want to remind trustees, so this doesn't require a board vote. It's an administrative decision, but obviously we're here to get your feedback. So that's why you won't see us looking to bring back the vote. Obviously, as you talk to people in one-on-ones, if you have concerns, you're here concerns, we let them know. Because this isn't a done deal. This is, we know how much we can say, we know what benefit we're gonna get on time, but we've got to weigh that versus the negatives. Because there are negatives, we are going to impact some people. And it's always about balancing that out as we move forward and try to match the needs of the community with the wants. I'm not saying this is a want or need, I'm just saying if there are infinite needs, we've got to decide some things are wanting that meet those needs.
Well, and I think from a communications perspective too, one of the things that we think of at the beginning of the year, and sometimes when we're coming back from holidays, we don't really stress through our communications, is that transportation dashboard. Because sometimes I'll see community members making a comment on social, then somebody else chimes in, don't forget, there's the dashboard. So I think that that's something just really very.
Like a reminder.
Yeah, just a reminder, here's how you can get that information. If it comes out from us on our social pages, or if it comes out from campus specifically from their admin teams or on their specific school pages. And then we're always looking for information, and we're open to that. And I think that that's a big piece of the community, is that suggestions are welcome, any ways that we can support our families. Speak to transportation, if it's something that needs to come to your staff, that they can.
Can I also say in regards to considerations for this, as a parent of both secondary and elementary students, the idea of secondary students gathering together in a group at an elementary school to wait for a bus, I would imagine there would want to be some communication around safety and security, what that process is going to look like, if there's going to be any adult oversight at these hubs. So that sort of perspective would also be beneficial to have some kind of information on.
Also, like when we're gonna do the survey, also, I would really like a high return because I don't know how it's very important that we get everybody's input, but what is our goal, and we just need to make sure we get that input, because then you'll be having people call us all the time and, hey, how did you
Just to temper that, as you know, it's sometimes hard to get feedback. We will try our darndest.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
We always want high return for sure.
One of the things too, from that perspective, is surveys that y'all have done in the past, you've said, is this a parent, a student, a teacher, a community member? So I know that my kids' campuses, it just pushes it out. Hey, if your parents haven't seen it, can you go in as a student and can you provide that feedback? So if we can make sure that we have that as well from our students' perspective, I'm sure that Dr. Jones and Bobby. Mr. Garcia, will be more than happy.
Also,
to do
on that note, postcard size QR codes going specifically to the students on those buses
Events.
to bring home to their parent would be beneficial as well. So that those who aren't following social media, those who aren't on the website 20 times a day like we are, will still get something in their hands 80% of the time if students can remember to give it to them, that will allow them the opportunity to have a say. And then those communications, those paper communications, can be targeting in the communication and the language used to let these parents know this is something that's going to directly impact them.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So I'll transition to our attendance zone now, so what we're looking at. So these are possibilities for the 27-28 or later. We're looking into attendance zone. I'm gonna break those up into junior high versus high school. So we'll start off by the why again with that. So in addition to what I first told you with the transportation zones, this one has a little bit more meat, if you would, into it. What this entails here is that we're looking at just to align staff vertically, right? And knowing we can prepare easier numbers for transportation as we know those patterns coming in, right? We know the patterns already for the junior high. We know how they'll transition. It becomes a feeder program. We know who's gonna come in from junior high and then from junior high to high school. We're looking at all of those. Again, bus route times will improve because of shorter, more efficient routes. Savings on this scenario here it's a little bit more. The other one was 152,000. This one will be actually about almost 200,000, 190,000. Again, it's their fuel would be saving about $95,000 in fuel, maintenance costs about 70,000, and then overtime a little bit more, about 25,000. Improve extracurriculars, that's the main thing here. Actually, we're looking at adding attendance boundaries would help us develop relationships with students. Again, that's that neighborhood concept that kids feel at home, get them started earlier, and it's their neighborhood, right? It's a neighborhood school. And of course, the importance of or supporting their skill sets and through everything that we have as far as like the fine arts department, the athletics department, and all our other extracurriculars that we have. With that, I'll start out with just the New Tech Middle School. What we have here now, this is a different data sets. The dots here are going to be a little bit different because the dots here represent all 6th through 12th graders right now. It's just not Manor New Tech. So it's anybody that's a 6th to 12th grader, they could actually be I'm sorry, 6th through 8, sorry. On the other side, it's going to be 9th through 12th, but on this one, 6th through 8. So it's every single dot represents anybody that's a 6th through 8th grader right now throughout the district, and no matter what campus they attend right now. So when we looked at this, we have 750 seats right now for Manor New Tech Middle School. Out of the 750 seats that we have, if we look at the southeast quadrant of here, when we lasso all those students that are in there, we get about 618. So that means that we're under capacity because capacity is 750 seats right now. So that means that 600 of those students are going to fill those seats, which leaves about 18% or 132, which anybody then can come in for the rest of the school district. So that's everybody in green there on the other side. Now outside, we have some students coming in that are enrolled again, 6th through 8th graders that are outside of district boundaries, and those you can see represent out of those. So again, we're looking at 618. 82% of those seats would be taken up, and then it gives us 18% that we can go in there, and they could apply
like a
or use the
lottery?
lottery. Yes, yeah. that'd be the lottery.
And just to be clear, this is for Manor New Tech Middle School.
Yeah, that's it. Just for New
I
Tech
know
Middle
there's a
School.
typo on the slide, but I just
Okay.
wanted to say
So,
that
I'm
out
sorry,
loud if
New
anybody
Tech
was
Middle
watching.
School.
Oh, I see it.
High school.
Where's oh,
No,
okay,
that's
sorry.
right.
Just saying it out
Oh,
loud.
okay.
But I
So-
love the fact that you guys are considering ways that would include those students who don't live in that attendance zone to still have an opportunity to attend.
So I'll go to the next slide. So the next slide now, we're going to talk about high school as well. So I have two different scenarios here. We're looking at the southeast side, and then I'll have another one on the southwest side. The southeast side here, of all the students that are between 9th and 12th graders, the entire district, no matter what campus that you go to, they're shown here, they're represented by blue dots here. So on the southeast side, if we lasso all the students in there, we have 970. Currently, we have 800 seats in there. So you can tell that we'd be a little bit over capacity. However, if we have some portables out here, if we start putting students in our portables, we can make that work. We can make it right at 900, a little bit, maybe over 900.
Are we currently using those portables?
Some of them we were using, I would defer back to Bobby, but I don't think we're using them anymore.
So we are currently using so there are two that are closest to my campus. We're using, they're double rooms. One of them is used for storage. One of them we use for testing periodically. And then one of the doubles is being used for our breakthrough post-secondary advisory program. So we're not currently conducting classes in there on a daily basis. We are using them pretty much on a day-to-day basis now.
Thank you.
But as you can tell, that leaves no seats for anybody to join. It's everybody there. That's about it. So nothing on that.
Just to be clear though, if there is a bond,
I was gonna,
and right, the original plan of the bond is to expand the school to 1,200 students. So there would be space if the bond expands. And you'll see at the end, there's some, one of the planning pieces in all this, is there's so many moving parts to this. Because you bring in the kids and they're gonna slowly move up and you've got to build buildings fast enough to keep up with it. Which is one of those reasons why we're not saying when we think we can even do this. There's a lot more planning that goes into that, but this is also in anticipation of Manor Tech High School being at least 1,200 students in the future.
Is there any estimation if the bond were to pass in November of 26? Any estimation on when we anticipate construction might be finished for an updated New Tech High School?
It'll be a little different than when it's finished. I mean, finished, you're probably talking 4 years at least, maybe even more. But there are things the architects can do if they notice it's coming. For example, Joe and I have already identified swing space that we're gonna need anyways to put more portables out there during construction. So if architects know that, we will arrange it so that the expansion can keep up with the growth of students while they're knocking and putting up buildings, if that's what's gonna be required. There's a whole lot of different ways to approach that exact problem you're talking about. We actually have asked an architect to kind of look into this on the side. And so they're working on something for us along those lines. And certainly, once we get that feedback, we'll be able to take that into account.
So the plan is for portables to be in the meantime. Is that what you were saying?
Well, yeah, that is
For the
always,
nines.
that is always an
Nines.
option. Let's say it that way. And I say it that way because we don't have the bonds. We don't know what the voters are gonna ask for. But once that's done, we know what the dollar amount of is, and we know what we can do. I'm just gonna use an example. This is not presaging anything, we're trying to decide something. But let's say the voters approve the bond, we have money, and we decide the best thing to do is to move central office right away and move it out to another location. You've just created X number of seats that you can use right away. And renovate this to get it ready for school is as far as renovations goes, pretty light work, especially if there's no one physically here. So I say there's always part, that's usually what your backup is, but there are other possibilities depending on the will of the voters and our community and how things get laid out, or we may not have to use all of it.
So I'll go through the next slide. The next slide is almost the exact same thing, other than the boundary now would be on the southwest side of the district. And so again, it's 800 seats that we have available for the high school. If we encompass that boundary, we would have 843 students, which is still a little bit over our current capacity that we would have already, or coming up to next year's capacity. That would be 100 plus, which means that we have no seats remaining to use for the long.
And just want to say why we did this scenario. So the other scenario, of course, matches New Tech Middle School exactly, almost exactly. The reason for this one is one of the things that I struggle with, and others do, is that if I'm an Oak Meadow student, and can you go back to the other scenario, Joe? So if I'm an Oak Meadow student and we have a boundary, I have to take a bus past New Tech High School on the way to Manor
You
High
have to
School.
go from here all the way here.
So there's a logic to both of these. And, that's why we put that on. But this one is logical to New Tech Middle School. Because of course, and now go to the new one. You can't have New Tech Middle School have this boundary because Decker Middle School.
This was a feeder pool.
Which you would, there's no reason to empty out a building, perfectly good building. So, yeah, so the logic on this one is the students that are furthest away go to the nearest high school to them. So again, these are just here for discussion and thought and feedback, but that's why we created this one as well.
So from a CTE and instruction perspective and roadmap, and how does that change the programs offered at New Tech versus what's offered in your senior high? Because now kiddos choose to go here because of the programs that are offered at Lynn Tech School. Does that change or does it?
I don't think it changes what you're saying. I think what you gain in this is students don't have to travel as far to go to high school. You lose some of that benefit from vertical alignment. Because you have, Decker Middle School will be split in half. Half the kids will go to Manor High School, half will go there. New Tech Middle School will be split in half. You have some that are going to Manor High School, and some are zoned for New Tech High School. So you lose some of the benefit.
But they'll be grandfathered. We started through tech, you grandfathered to graduation.
Right. Well, we were grandfathered on, but that's what I think what you lose is that continuity that you get out of the other scenario.
Well, essentially, right now, all of our high schools offer the same, both of our high schools offer the same programs. or
No,
how does
they,
that
they,
work?
they've begun to differentiate and
Because
we,
that's what you were
And
asking
that-
about,
and
right?
that's
That's what my concern
different
would be,
programs.
is that when I'm looking at my current mission and vision statement, right? That their full potential, what their path is, and right now, we've laid out, if this is the path you want to take, if you want to be a paramedic, you're going here, if you want to be, cosmetology, you're going here, and I think that
Is there a scenario where you've done this for the middle school but left the high school with the hub stuff? Does
That would be hybrid, and we looked into, it's not here, but we did look into both of them.
yeah, that is an option. You can create boundaries for one and not the other, which by the way, this does require. You do this, so.
So there's a lot to think about.
Oh, there's a lot to think about, and a lot of planning that goes into something like this. Gotta start somewhere.
This was a minimum of 2 years away.
Minimum.
I think that the other question that I begin in looking at serving all kiddos and looking at our CCMR number, right? And looking at what campuses, where we are falling short. I think that I'm interested in more information there, right? How does this help us to meet those particular numbers and ensure that when kiddos leave here, that they are ready for the workforce? And I know this is an attendance discussion, it's a transportation discussion, but at the end of the day, I'm here to serve kiddos. I'm here to make sure they're ready for secondary. And so knowing that we possibly aren't going to be adjusting those programs, that's hard for me to sit and provide input without us looking at that. Knowing that that is something, I mean, that's huge. That's huge. That's a kid's life.
How often do you think we're going to discuss this year or so?
This,
It might change when, depending on the election of the one.
Brian,
Oh,
well, we got plenty of discussions. Time to
Just
go.
prelim,
because
Very, very early.
we have to address
Yeah.
the academic piece as
Yeah.
well.
that's right.
That might be an expansion of programs at one of the high schools.
And I'll go, which is a good segue for the next slide, because it deals with demographics as well. So
That's
you
what I
saw
was
that.
hoping.
Yeah. Yeah, look at that. So, moving into demographics here, these are the scenarios that we were looking at Maynard. I'll do Maynard Middle School here just to begin with. But current is outlined in green. Those are the students that we currently have right now. And of course, they're in their groups like gifted. We have about 34% of all the students right now that they are gifted. If we would go to the proposed southeast, that's the one at the southeast side, then the numbers would change into the red. And I'll let you look at that.
And of course, the red doesn't count any of the seats that would be vacant for transfers, right, which you can't predict what's.
yeah, and that's that 18% that we could create a criteria or something to fill those gaps. I might have a lot of questions, but also now with that, I'm gonna go shift over now to the high school side. The high school is I'll remind you, we have two different scenarios for that. southeast and the southwest side. And so looking at that, I've added another line down here in light purple, and that's the southeast side. That's over there, Oak Meadows, where we had Oak Meadows and Decker Elementary. If we incorporated that side, that's what these numbers would change it to for the high school.
I would like some information on justifying this academically. Because I'm seeing the high school going from 25% to 10%. That changes the population greatly in the building. Even the middle school going 30, 40, 15. There's different training components to deal with different populations. It's kind of tough.
Looking at you, I mean, looking at your personnel, I mean, how quickly can we shift personnel from a special education perspective too? And Bobby's had from a personal perspective, I just know that that's big.
So
And I'm not asking for you to speak necessarily. No, I'm not asking you at all. But I'm just saying, like, how quickly
Well,
with
remember
that type of shift.
Remember that this isn't something whenever, let's just say we pick a year, like 28, 29 school year. What that means is the boundaries are in place for the beginning of the rising group, which means the sophomore, junior, and senior classes haven't changed. So it's exactly the same. So the change in demographics will happen over 4 years. So yes, there is some shifting and things that we will have to do to prepare if we're going to advance. So you're making the argument as why we're not doing this anytime soon, right? These are large shifts that we would have to prepare for if we go down that route. But yes, you're right. It's a new campus. You have to be prepared for the campus. On the other side, the advantage to creating that feeder pattern is what's coming. It's not a lottery system. You have an idea of who's coming rather than it's just whatever happens to be on that list that makes it in. So that's the flip side.
Okay. What's in my mind is competition, charter schools, private school, vouchers. What are we making our high schools less attractive or more attractive when we do this kind of thing in terms of keeping prospective families in our district?
There's coming a point, and actually, funny enough, I was just talking to the directors a little bit about this. There's coming a point where all of the scores on all the campuses are starting to go wrong. I mean, that already happened. We haven't gotten over the hump yet. So
Oh, if we become East Lake, then it's not a problem.
well, that's my point is,
It's like,
at some point, we need to be prepared for our campuses to become more attractive overall, including the relaunch of the early college high school. I mean, the early college high school never win it, it's still there. But there's a perception that we need to shine the light on that, and what is it like now? Again, that's another reason why I'm talking further on out. And I love what you all said, because you really brought it back home to our goals, which is academics. Like, I love how you put that to me. How's this going to help us academically? That's great. So what I hear you saying is to answer that question about charter schools and stuff. I'm hearing you need me to go ahead and start projecting out what is my plan for those schools to be attractive, not just New Tech, high school, New Tech middle, but what about Manor High School, about Decker Middle School, what about Manor Middle School? What is it going to look like 2 to 3 years down the road when we start contemplating actually doing this? And I think that's a fair question. I think it's a fair question from the community to me to put that out there before we start making these decisions. I really like what you said about what are the programs. We actually have a group working on what is those long-term programs, because TEA is about to change those CTE programs and sunset some. So what is that going to look like? Because by the time we're talking about this, TEA will already have changed them all. We will have to reset.
And I think that those are great questions, and that's exactly why we brought this here. To hear those questions from you all who are experts on your community as to what we need to be thinking about before we even propose a change to you. Right now, we're just floating things out there and asking questions.
Well, now look at you said Manor Middle too. I mean, I look at the turnaround and folding that back in ideally, right? As a district controlled campus, right? And
correct.
we're running it. Taking the information that we have from med diads and how successful certain ones are, right? I don't know if cosmetology is staying, but now we have a middle school that is interested in that pathway, right? Yeah, I think a lot of good discussion.
What you're doing the last night, that
So
really
these are next
is the,
steps.
you know, some of the next steps, and when I say next steps, this could last years. Yeah. And I'm not even, on my radar isn't even getting community feedback yet, because we don't even know what those boundaries we would be getting feedback on right now. I think you all have asked some really great questions. We're going to need to go back and talk about them and decide, based on what you've given us, if it even still makes sense for this conversation. But that'll take some time. And I'll end with this. We're in the middle of strategic planning.
Yeah.
So part of the bringing this conversation now is, now that we're going to strategic planning, we've had this conversation out to the public, we can talk about, does this fit our strategic plan? It's not public, it's not hidden, it's out there. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I think that's to be discussed.
I think that's it. Well, thanks for even thinking long-term.
Yes.
We don't, a lot of
I'm
school
gonna be
districts don't do
surprised.
that.
We're not gonna be surprised, we're forward thinking.
And we're giving people the opportunity to
Yeah, exactly.
provide input.
I'm sure I'm going to be at a basketball game tomorrow night, and I'm sure I will hear some feedback.
Take the QR, oh, we don't have it.
No, I don't
Yeah, I mean,
I'm president, yeah, unless we're done, that's all we have for tonight.
No, thank you for all of this work.
Thank you, yes.
Decisions.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Let me see. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, I really,
Madam President, I move to adjourn.
This.
okay. Confirmation, the next board meeting is March 30th. And then now I have a motion from trustee Patterson to adjourn at 7:26 PM, seconded by trustee Howard. All those in favor?
Yeah.
All right,
6-0. Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
thank y'all. Thank everybody for the presentation. Great information.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
you.
Appreciate it.
Stay healthy.
7:26 is still.
You did.